darkness lurks beyond the veil of our reality. Legends, folklore, and ancient texts speak of malevolent entities that have haunted humanity for centuries. These creatures thrive in the shadows, preying on fear, corrupting souls, and bending reality itself. Today, we take a deep dive into 5 of the most terrifying demonic beings known to man. But beware, some believe that even speaking their names invites their attention. Have you ever woken up in the dead of night, unable to move, only to see a dark figure watching you from the corner of the room? A tall, faceless shadow, standing motionless, its presence thick with dread? If so, you are not alone. Many have encountered this entity, one that defies explanation, yet appears across cultures, generations, and even in the darkest corners of our collective fears. The Shadow Man is not tied to a single myth or legend. Instead, he appears across the world, haunting people in eerily similar ways. Some describe him as a tall, dark silhouette with no discernible features, only a void where a face should be. Others report glowing red or piercing white eyes staring from the darkness. And in nearly every case, one terrifying detail remains the same. He watches, he waits, and he never speaks.
He's watching.
For centuries, people have reported encounters with this being. He appears at the foot of the bed, in the corner of a dimly lit hallway, or just beyond the edges of vision, always lurking. Some believe he is an omen of death, a harbinger of misfortune. Others claim he feeds on fear, growing stronger the more terrified his victims become. Science has attempted to explain the Shadow Man, linking him to sleep paralysis, a terrifying phenomenon where the body remains temporarily paralyzed upon waking, while the mind hovers between dreaming and reality. In this vulnerable state, many report seeing sinister figures standing over them, unable to move, unable to scream. But does sleep paralysis truly explain the Shadow Man? Or is something else at play? Some victims claim they weren't dreaming, that the presence remained even after they could move again. Others report seeing him outside of sleep on security cameras, in mirrors, even in broad daylight. Among the many forms of the Shadow Man, one is particularly infamous: the Hat Man. This entity appears as a tall shadow wearing a wide-brimmed hat, often standing in doorways or watching from the foot of the bed. Unlike other shadow figures, he exudes a deep sense of malevolence. Witnesses report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread in his presence, as if he is studying them, choosing them. Some believe the Hat Man is more than just a shadow figure, that he is a separate entity, a true demonic force. Stories tell of him appearing before moments of tragedy, watching from the shadows before something terrible happens. Is he a collector of souls? A bringer of misfortune? Or something even darker? If the Shadow Man isn't just a hallucination, then what is he? Paranormal researchers have proposed chilling theories. Some believe shadow people exist outside our perception of reality, slipping between dimensions. Perhaps they are observers or predators. Many religions speak of dark spirits that feed on negative energy, latching onto vulnerable souls. Could the Shadow Man be one of them? What if the Shadow Man isn't an external being at all, but something created by our own minds? A living nightmare born from our deepest fears?
Wake up.
Thousands of people claim to have encountered the Shadow Man, but some stories stand out as truly terrifying. One witness recalls waking up to find a tall shadow figure standing by their closet. As they tried to move, the figure stepped closer, until it was right beside them. It leaned down and whispered something in a language they didn't understand. The next morning, 3 long scratches appeared on their chest.
He's here.
Another chilling account comes from a security guard working the night shift. While monitoring the cameras, he saw a dark figure standing in the hallway, motionless. Thinking it was an intruder, he went to investigate, but when he arrived, the hallway was empty. When he checked the footage again, the figure was still there.
I'm still here.
If you ever encounter the Shadow Man, can you escape his grasp? Some believe that strengthening the mind through meditation, prayer, or even sheer willpower can repel him. Others swear by protective symbols, salt lines, or even commanding him to leave. But those who have met his gaze say the truth is far more terrifying. Once you've seen him, he never truly leaves. The Shadow Man is more than just a legend. Whether a trick of the mind or a true supernatural force, his presence is undeniable. Thousands have seen him, many fear him, and some believe he is still watching, waiting, choosing his next victim. So tonight, as you lay in bed, watching the darkness around you, ask yourself one question. Are you really alone? Or is something watching you from the shadows? In the heart of the cold, unforgiving wilderness, something ancient lurks. A creature of legend, whispered about in the dead of night, feared by those who dare to speak its name. It is said to be taller than any man, hungrier than any beast, and more evil than any demon. It is the Wendigo, and once it finds you, there is no escape. Where did it come from? What does it want? And worst of all, could it still be out there, waiting for its next victim? The Wendigo legend originates from the Algonquian-speaking tribes of North America, Native American and First Nations peoples who lived in the cold, remote forests of Canada and the northern United States. These tribes tell of a terrifying spirit that roams the land, always starving, always hunting. The Wendigo is more than just a monster. It is a warning, a symbol of greed, starvation, and the dangers of human desperation. According to legend, a person becomes a Wendigo after committing the ultimate sin, consuming human flesh. Those who turn to cannibalism in the bitter cold, when all other food is gone, curse themselves to an eternity of suffering. Their bodies twist and stretch, their minds rot with hunger, and their souls become lost to darkness. They are no longer human, they are Wendigo. Descriptions of the Wendigo vary, but all agree on one thing. It is a horrific sight to behold. Some say it is skeletal and emaciated, its skin stretched tight over its bones, with hollow eyes that burn like embers. Others describe it as a towering beast, with long, clawed fingers and jagged, yellow teeth, its mouth dripping with the blood of its victims. Some even claim it as the skull of a deer, with twisted antlers and rotting flesh hanging from its face. Despite its massive size, the Wendigo moves unnaturally fast, slipping between the trees with eerie silence. And when it speaks, its voice is not its own. It mimics human voices, calling for help, luring unsuspecting travelers deeper into the woods, where it waits. The most terrifying thing about the Wendigo is its hunger. No matter how much it eats, it is never satisfied. With each victim it consumes, it only grows taller, more grotesque, yet its stomach remains empty, an endless void. It is a living nightmare, cursed to devour and devour, yet never feel relief. Some believe the Wendigo doesn't just feast on flesh. It feeds on fear itself. The longer you are in its presence, the weaker you become. Your mind fogs, your body slows, and soon, you are too exhausted to run. That's when it strikes. Some believe that once the Wendigo marks you, there is no escape. The more you fear it, the closer it gets. It is said to stalk its prey for days, appearing just out of sight, whispering your name in the wind. By the time you realize it's real, it's already too late. But there is something even more terrifying than being hunted by the Wendigo. Becoming one. Over the years, countless people have claimed to see the Wendigo. Hunters, campers, and hikers have all reported strange figures lurking in the woods, hearing unnatural voices, or discovering massive footprints in the snow, footprints that lead nowhere. One chilling account comes from a group of trappers in Canada in the early 1900s. They found one of their own missing, his cabin door torn from its hinges. When they followed the blood-stained snow, they found him miles away, his body half-eaten, frozen in fear, his face twisted in a silent scream. Another story tells of a park ranger in Minnesota who went searching for a lost hiker. He heard someone calling for help, but the voice kept shifting, sounding less and less human. As he turned to leave, he saw a tall, thin figure standing between the trees, staring. He ran, never looking back. Some believe the Wendigo is nothing more than an old legend, a story meant to warn against greed and cannibalism. But others are not so sure. To this day, reports of strange sightings continue. From deep in the forests of Canada, the Great Lakes region, and the Rockies, people still whisper about something unnatural moving through the trees. Is it possible that the Wendigo is more than just a myth? Or is it still out there, waiting? If you ever find yourself lost in the cold, dark woods, if you hear a whisper in the wind that doesn't belong, if you feel something watching from the trees, run. Because once the Wendigo has set its sights on you, you will never be seen again. There are ghosts, and then there are spirits that refuse to move on. Restless, vengeful, and filled with unfinished purpose. In Jewish folklore, one such entity exists. A malevolent force that takes possession of the living, whispering in their ears, twisting their thoughts, and controlling their bodies. It is known as the Dybbuk. The word Dybbuk comes from the Hebrew verb dabak, meaning to cling or attach. Unlike a ghost, which lingers passively, a Dybbuk is far more dangerous, because it doesn't just haunt, it possesses. According to Kabbalistic teachings, the Dybbuk is the soul of a person who died with unfinished business, often due to great sin or injustice. Instead of moving on to the next world, their soul remains trapped between realms, desperate to find a body to inhabit. Once inside a host, the Dybbuk speaks through them, controls their actions, and feeds on their fear and suffering. And the longer it remains, the harder it is to remove. The legend of the Dybbuk dates back centuries, with some of the earliest accounts appearing in 16th century Jewish mysticism. After breaking off an engagement, she began to speak in a voice that wasn't hers, revealing secrets about people she had never met. Her family called upon a rabbi, who performed a powerful exorcism. The Dybbuk screamed through her body before finally being expelled, but as it left, it warned, "I will return." A Dybbuk does not enter a person at random. It is drawn to the weak, the grieving, and the guilty. Those who have suffered great trauma or loss are said to be especially vulnerable. It whispers in their ears, slowly taking hold, feeding on their pain and regret, until they are no longer themselves.
Let me in.
Signs of Dybbuk possession. Their personality will change, becoming violent, erratic, or speaking in tongues. And when one of the most terrifying modern encounters with a Dybbuk came in the form of an object, known today as the Dybbuk box. The story begins in 2001, when an antique shop owner purchased a mysterious wooden wine cabinet at an estate sale. Inside, he found strange relics, locks of hair, dried roses, and an eerie sense of unease. Almost immediately, terrifying things began to happen. He and others who owned the box suffered nightmares of a demonic old woman, experienced paralysis, nosebleeds, and unexplained shadows moving through their homes. One owner even claimed that the Dybbuk escaped the box, leaving claw marks on the walls. To this day, the box remains locked away. Some say its curse is real. Others believe it is nothing more than a legend. But those who have owned it refuse to speak of it. Unlike Hollywood-style exorcisms, removing a Dybbuk requires ancient Jewish rituals performed by a highly trained rabbi. The process is dangerous because the Dybbuk will fight back. The ceremony involves intense prayer, the blowing of a shofar, a ram's horn, and a direct confrontation with the entity. The rabbi demands the Dybbuk reveal its name and reason for its suffering. Only once its sin is acknowledged can it be banished from the host and forced to move on. But here's the terrifying part. Not all Dybbuks are willing to leave.
I won't go.
Some believe the Dybbuk is just an ancient superstition, but others claim it is still with us today. There are modern possession cases where victims show the same terrifying symptoms: unexplained voices, violent convulsions, knowledge of things they shouldn't know. And what about the Dybbuk box? Some say its curse still lingers, affecting anyone who dares to open it. So the question remains, is the Dybbuk still looking for hosts? The Dybbuk is not like other spirits. It does not simply haunt, it consumes. It waits for the right moment, for the right soul, and when it finds you, it does not let go. So tonight, if you hear a voice calling your name, if you feel a cold breath at the back of your neck, and if, in the silence of your own thoughts, you hear a whisper that does not belong, pray that it's not too late. In the dead of night, when the world is silent and the shadows grow long, something moves. It slithers between trees, its footsteps barely a whisper on the wind. It watches you as you sleep, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It is neither human nor beast, but something in between. A monster feared for generations. A creature that takes many forms, yet has only one purpose: to feed. Tonight, we take a deep dive into the legend of the Aswang, the most feared supernatural creature in the Philippines. What is it? Where does it come from? And most terrifying of all, could it still be lurking in the dark, hunting its next victim? The Aswang is one of the oldest and most terrifying creatures in Filipino mythology. Unlike vampires or werewolves, which have specific forms, the Aswang is a shapeshifter, a witch, a ghoul, a demon, and a bloodthirsty predator all in one. During the day, it hides in plain sight, appearing as an ordinary human, a neighbor, a friend, even a family member. But when night falls, its transformation begins. Its limbs stretch, its skin turns cold, and its eyes glow in the dark. In some tales, it grows bat-like wings and takes to the sky. In others, its body splits in half, its lower half staying hidden while its upper half hunts for prey. And when it smells blood, it cannot resist. The aswang is not just one monster, but many. Over time, different regions of the Philippines have told different stories, each with its own horrifying twist. The Manananggal. A winged creature that separates its torso from its lower body and flies into the night, searching for pregnant women. It uses its long, needle-like tongue to suck the unborn child from the mother's womb. The tick-tick and the whack-whack. Winged aswangs that mimic the sounds of night birds. But beware, the softer the sound, the closer it is to you. The sigbin. A dog-like creature that walks backward and drains its victims of blood. The ghoul aswang. A grave robber that feasts on the flesh of the dead, and sometimes, the living. No matter the form, one thing remains the same: the aswang is always hungry, and it is always hunting. The aswang is a silent predator. It does not attack blindly. It waits, it watches, and it chooses its victims carefully. Pregnant women, children, and the weak are its favorite prey. It uses trickery and deception to lure victims away. Some aswangs can mimic voices, pretending to be a loved one calling for help. Others send out an eerie ticking sound, growing fainter as they approach, tricking victims into thinking they are far away when in reality, they are just outside your door. And when it strikes, it is already too late. During the day, the aswang hides among us. But there are ways to spot them if you know what to look for. They avoid salt, garlic, and holy objects. Their eyes reflect upside-down images, as if they are not from this world. When looking into a mirror, their reflection is blurry, or missing altogether. Some say if you look into their eyes, you will feel an unnatural coldness, as if your soul is being watched. But even if you know how to spot them, that does not mean you are safe. Unlike ordinary monsters, an aswang cannot be killed by mere weapons. It takes special rituals and ancient knowledge to defeat them. To keep them away, villagers place salt, garlic, and holy water around their homes. Some hang a special plant called batik on doors and windows, as its scent repels the creature. But if you must face one, you must destroy it completely. A blade made from bamboo or a bolo knife blessed by a priest can cut it down. But the most effective way? Find its severed lower half and destroy it before sunrise. Without it, the creature can never become whole again. In modern times, many dismiss the aswang as just folklore. But for those who live in remote villages, the fear is very real. There are still reports, stories of people vanishing without a trace, of strange creatures spotted in the dead of night. Some claim to hear the tick-tick sound just outside their window, only to wake up feeling drained, weak, as if something was feeding on them. Could the aswang still be among us? Or has it simply learned to hide better? If you ever hear a soft flapping of wings at night, if someone calls your name, but their voice sounds wrong, and if you ever hear a ticking sound growing fainter instead of louder, do not go outside. Do not open the door. Because once the aswang has found you, there is no escape. For centuries, Cultures across the world have spoken of demons, malevolent spirits that corrupt, torment, and destroy. But among them, few are as feared and as powerful as Pazuzu. A demon so terrifying, so dangerous, that even other dark spirits feared to challenge him. A force of plague and destruction, yet also a strange and twisted protector. Tonight, we take a deep dive into the legend of Pazuzu, the king of the wind demons, the bringer of famine, and the nightmare that still haunts humanity to this day. Pazuzu originates from ancient Mesopotamian mythology, dating back over 3,000 years. He was known as the demon king of the southwestern winds, a force that brought plagues, drought, and famine to those who angered him. He is often depicted as a monstrous figure, with the body of a man, the head of a lion or dog, bulging eyes, a gaping mouth filled with sharp teeth, the wings of an eagle, and taloned feet. A terrifying, unnatural fusion of creatures, a true abomination of the ancient world. But Pazuzu is not just a mindless bringer of destruction. His nature is far more complicated, and far more disturbing. Unlike many demons, Pazuzu is not purely evil. He is a force of chaos, but also a protector. Ancient texts reveal that while he brings disease, famine, and death, he also fights against other demons, especially Lamashtu, a monstrous female demon who preys on pregnant women and newborns. It was believed that only a demon could stop another demon. So, in a dark twist of fate, people actually invoked Pazuzu's name to protect themselves. Amulets bearing his fearsome image were worn by women and children, hoping that his presence would ward off even greater horrors. But calling upon a demon always comes at a cost, and some believe that those who welcome Pazuzu into their homes may never have been truly free of him. Pazuzu's domain is the wind, but not just any wind. His breath carries disease and misfortune, and those who feel a sudden, dry gust sweeping through the air should beware. Ancient Mesopotamians feared the dry, hot winds that signaled the coming of drought, crop failure, and plagues. They believed these were not natural phenomena, but the very breath of Pazuzu himself, sweeping across the land, claiming victims in its wake. Even today, travelers in the Middle East tell of strange, howling winds in the night, whispers carried in the air, and an overwhelming sense that something is watching them from the storm. If you've heard the name Pazuzu before, it's likely because of one of the most terrifying horror films of all time, The Exorcist. In the film, a young girl named Regan becomes possessed by a violent and blasphemous entity. Throughout the movie, and in some cases, that belief has led to real-life horror. Is Pazuzu just an ancient myth? Or has his presence been felt in the real world? There have been countless reports of possessions, where victims display unnatural strength, violent outbursts, and an ability to speak in unknown languages, traits eerily similar to the demonic attacks seen in The Exorcist. Some exorcists claim that invoking Pazuzu's name, even as a joke, can attract his attention. And once he has set his gaze upon you, escaping him is nearly impossible.
I see you.
For those who fear Pazuzu, protection is difficult because unlike ordinary demons, he is both a destroyer and a guardian. He cannot simply be exorcised, for he is a king among demons. Ancient rituals involving blessed water, salt, and prayers in Sumerian and Akkadian were once used to ward off his influence. But some believe the only true way to be safe is to never attract his attention in the first place. Never speak his name carelessly. Never challenge his existence. And if you ever feel a strange wind wrapping around you, whispering things you cannot understand, pray that it is only the wind. Pazuzu is more than just a legend. He is a force of ancient fear, a demon king whose name has survived thousands of years. And whether he is merely a relic of mythology or something far more real, one thing is certain. He is watching. He is waiting. And if you hear the winds whispering, you may not be alone. We have journeyed deep into the darkness, uncovering the terrifying legends of some of the most malevolent entities ever known. The Shadow Man, lurking just beyond our perception, feeding off fear and despair. The Wendigo, cursed with an insatiable hunger, doomed to stalk the cold, empty wilderness. The Dybbuk, a restless, vengeful spirit that refuses to let go of the living. The Aswang, a shape-shifting predator, hiding among us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Pazuzu, the king of hell, a force of famine, plague, and possession, an entity feared for millennia. These creatures may be myths, or they may be something more. Stories passed down through generations, or warnings of real horrors that lurk in the unseen corners of our world. But whether you believe in them or not, they have already left their mark. In whispered legends, in unexplained shadows, in the nightmares that haunt us long after the lights go out. And perhaps, they are watching even now.